I like we've got the countdown right on the screen. So in about 27 seconds, we'll get started.
That's right.
Good morning, Carl. Good morning, Patricia.
Good morning.
All right. Good morning and good evening to you all. Thank you for coming to our Zoom Moderator for Contest sessions, graciously hosted by District 20 DTM Cajetan Barretto. We are excited to have you here this morning. So he joined Toastmasters in August 2017 and has completed a variety of roles and educational achievements, working through the Legacy program and also through our New Pathways education program. He's served as club president, VP education, area director, and division director for District 20, serving Kuwait and Bahrain. Cajetan achieved Distinguished Toastmaster status in June 2020 and was awarded the prestigious District Toastmaster of the Year for 2018-2019. Please help me welcome Cajetan Barretto, DTM, as he presents Zoom Moderator Training for Contests.
Thank you. Shall I take over?
The floor is yours.
Good morning, District 45. For us, it's a good evening. As when I first came into this meeting, Crystal asked me, are you doing this as part of any project? I will evaluate you. And I was telling her, I'm done as far as projects are concerned. I'm doing this simply because I love doing training. So today I'm here to talk about Zoom moderation. And this will be slightly different in the way I approach this session, but I'll explain to you what I have in mind. And I think we can do a very good job. We have a good participation, and I'm hoping for a lot of interaction. This is not a teaching. I want to learn from you as you learn from me. And we together do the best that we can in this situation that we are all in, doing things online, whether it's meetings or whether it's contests. So what do I have in mind today is, first of all, let me introduce myself. The pronunciation is Cajetan Barretto. Some call it Cajetan Barretto. It's all fine with me. I'm a Toastmaster, certified trainer, photographer, scuba diver, certified kettlebell trainer, if you are into that kind of things. But overall, I'm a geek. I love to do something and then show others how to do it. In fact, when I recently saw an update on Zoom about polls and quizzes, the first thing I did, even before trying, is I made a video, and then I will be trying it out in today, right now, after this session. I will try this and show you how it works. So I love to teach others. I love to share my experiences. You can find me on my social media, Barretto Photography on Facebook and Dustom Kuwait on Instagram. They are basically focused on my photography. But what has really kept me engaged in the last 18 months is this Tech for Toastmasters, where I've been creating content, going to different districts, conducting workshops on Canva, on Zoom, on hybrid meetings, and today, moderation for contests. So today, from a ground rule perspective, do keep your microphones muted. I'm going to keep all the security off. That means you all can interrupt me anytime you want. try to use the speaker view because as you can see, I use a system that allows me to combine my presentations and camera in the same screen rather than using PowerPoint. Do use queries in chat so that I can figure out what is it that you all are interested in and adapt my training accordingly. As we say in Toastmasters, safety is paramount, so ensure that you're in a safe environment. So I'm going to mostly focus today on the moderator role and the District 20 best practices that we applied generally driven by me when the COVID happened. What would be the best way to conduct a contest? I'm sure most of you have already done this, but today we will sort of align to make sure that we are doing it all at the best possible way using the tools and technology that we have in Zoom, how we can set up the contest, what are the team structures, and if there are any questions and answers, we will address them. Right. So before I progress, let me launch this poll that I created, what we call the advanced poll. And if you have not updated your Zoom client, you might face some difficulty. And I did it expressly to check that particular aspect of the participants, how many of you all diligently update your Zoom client, because it does play a role in contest also, as we will learn. So those of you who can see the poll can submit. It means you have the latest client and you're all good to go. There are 4 questions. Try to give responses to all 4. So we have 6 responses so far. Okay, I'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have good response. More 20 of you all have responded. Let me share what you all have provided. So as far as Zoom moderator is concerned, I can see a wide range from everything from 0 to 9. Nobody has rated themselves as 10 because I guess you'll consider that as perfection. And maybe there's always an area of improvement for all of us. Even I wouldn't choose 10 for that matter. Around 50-50, some of you all are comfortable creating breakout rooms, some of you all are not. A large number, 13 of you all have indicated that you all want to take up the Zoom moderator role in the upcoming speech contest, and that's great. And let's see the details of what you all want to get out of today's session. Okay. So I can see all the responses that you have typed, such as breakout room. You want to learn about meeting flow. I would love to do presentations in Zoom the way you do. That's one of the responses. I'm not sure. Make sure everyone is trained according to their roles, multitasking, getting judges' results. So a lot of thoughts are there. And basically, that is what I cover in today's session. So let me stop sharing. So I hope you can see my screen currently, which is showing Toastmasters District 20 online speech contest. Crystal, can you confirm?
Yes, we can.
All right. So when this pandemic started and we were deciding how to conduct meetings and contests, I had organized, along with the leadership in District 20, the best way to conduct contests. And so this manual was prepared by us, and I will be sharing it with you all if you all are interested to go through it. But I will be briefly going through some of the main aspects of conducting a speech contest using Zoom. And this is a good reference for me, and even for you all, if you want later on to go through this PDF file will be quite useful. So the first thing, of course, I tell everyone is to get familiar with Zoom. And familiar with Zoom is not just about knowing how the client works, but more importantly, how the settings work, because many of the settings that we place in the Zoom account will be applied in your Zoom client. And the thing is, once those settings are applied, some of them cannot be changed unless you close the meeting. So let's say you already started a contest and some settings are wrong. Well, you can't do anything about it now, because unless you close the contest and change the settings and restart the contest. So that's why it's very important that you understand the settings, use those settings, and most importantly, have a mock session with those settings, so that when the actual contest starts, there are no surprises for you. Okay, so get familiar with the Zoom. And most importantly, the account that will be used in running the contest, sorry. So if you are in the Zoom account, and let's say this is the account that is going to be used for running the contest, then use that account for the mocks, for the judges training, for the contestant briefing, everything. Use this account, because all the settings that you have used will then be used on the day of the contest. There won't be any surprises. Suddenly, if you use a new account or a district account and they have not configured properly, then things will not work correctly. So that's why when you talk about Zoom account and the settings, we have to be familiar with all of the settings and what each setting does. And we'll go through some of the settings that are relevant from a contest point of view. Now, as far as licensing is concerned, you need to be aware of what kind of licenses you have and how many participants that will allow you to host. Most of us, we use the normal, the standard license that costs anything between $10 to $15, and that allows us to host up to 100 participants. If you want more, then you have a different kind of license. Maybe it's a division contest, and then you need to borrow the district account, which can host maybe up to 500. So you need to be aware about it. And so if you're borrowing the district account for the contest, then everything that you do as a Zoom moderator must be done on that account. And hopefully make sure that nobody else uses it or makes any of the settings between the time you set it up and the time you actually run the contest. Of course, there are plenty of Zoom tutorials, especially from Zoom. Go through them, understand what each setting does, and familiarize yourself. Familiarization is important whenever you want to take up the important role of a Zoom moderator. Now, as a moderator, it is important that we have a very good internet connection, because you become the central focal point of that contest. If something goes wrong, then everything else gets affected. So the person who will be the host, and as we know, there can be only one host in a Zoom meeting. We can have plenty of co-hosts, but there can be only one host. So that person should be really consistent, have the best connection possible for the day of the contest. As a role player, perhaps not as a Zoom moderator, because if you run a contest and you never see a Zoom moderator and never hear him throughout the entire contest, it means he or she has done a great job, because the role of a moderator is to be in the background. But for the rest of the team, who are the contest chairs, who are the master of ceremonies, the sergeant at arms, audio plays a very important role. And this is something that we have observed, obviously. We have been doing Zoom for more than a year now, and most of us have invested in some kind of audio equipment, even if it's a simple headset that gives us the ability to have clear audio when we are delivering a role. For example, I started my Zoom moderation with something like that, what you see on the screen, a normal headset, where the objective is to have the microphone as close to your mouth as possible. And that gives us the best audio quality. As you can see right now also, I'm using a system that is really right next to my mouth. In fact, it sort of obstructs the view, but I don't mind, because when you are in an online environment, audio is king. Better people are willing to forgive a bad video, but they're not willing to forgive bad audio. So ensure that you have a good audio setup. And now we talk about as a Zoom moderator, what are the settings we need to ensure to have a good contest? And I'll just highlight to you some of the things that you should do in your Zoom settings, and some of the things that we can do after the contest starts. So for example, if you were to open your Zoom account and go to chat, so normally when I want to search for any settings in your Zoom account, the fastest way I do is just by typing chat, right? So you can click chat, and I can see that there are many chat settings. So here, for example, I have enabled chat, right? So if you have disabled chat, then obviously in the contest, you won't be able to have any kind of chat. But in my opinion, we should enable it, because there are different stages in the contest where you want to have chat. So if you are disabled in the setting, and then for some reason during the break or something, you want to enable the chat, you will find that you can't do it. So enable it in the settings, but during the contest itself, in your Zoom client, we can enable, disable at different points as a Zoom moderator, as a co-host or as a host, we can change those settings as required. For example, when the contest starts, we can disable the chat. When the contest ends, we can enable it, and so forth. These two options, I always insist that they should be disabled in the settings, the annotations and whiteboard. And the reason is because if these are enabled, while, for example, somebody is sharing, then other participants could can write on that and can cause disturbance in the contest. So annotations and whiteboards generally should be switched off. You can enable the non-verbal feedback. Breakout rooms, of course, you have to ensure they are enabled, and we'll cover the breakout rooms. And waiting rooms should be enabled, because if a contest starts, sometimes the chief judge says, don't admit people while the speaker is on the stage. So having a waiting room will allow you that flexibility of keeping people in the waiting room till that speaker finishes their speech. So at this stage, you have done all the settings. Now you create the meeting itself, the contest meeting itself. And some of the settings we can do in the meeting itself. So when you create the meeting, you will give your name for the meeting, the date and the time and the duration. And then we talk about some of the settings that we need to set up here. For example, some of these are the standard recommendations, but for example, this is very important: mute participants on entry. This will ensure that any participant who enters the main hall by default is muted and unable to interrupt, perhaps if the speech is going on, if the contest is on. So they will be muted, unmuted by the host or the co-host at the right time, but when they enter, they will be on mute. The rest of the things are fine in the sense that if there is any setting here which you think is of any importance, you can put in the chat. I will check it, but these are some of the recommended settings that we recommend.
Cajetan, can I interrupt? I got a question in the chat.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a host and the Zoom moderator, as you have been using both of the terminologies?
Yes, the term is used interchangeably. We call them moderators from a Toastmaster perspective. Zoom calls them host. So there is no concept of moderator as such in Zoom. So the terminology used by Zoom is host. We tend to use the terminology moderator, Zoom moderator. So they are used interchangeably.
Great, thanks. There's also a question if you'd be able to share your District 20 best practices document in the chat.
Yes, I will do that. I will share the document and I will also email it to you so you can, and I have, in fact, I have all your registrations, so I could email it to you so that you are for sure you will get it in your email.
Okay, thank you.
So let's talk about, yeah, so this is where I was talking about moderator / host. You can use any term that you feel comfortable with. There's no difference between it. In fact, when I wrote this manual more than a year ago, there was a big difference between a host and a co-host, because there were certain things that only the host could do, and there were other things that only the co-host could do only limited things. For example, the breakout rooms could not be done by the co-host, but you know, Zoom has kept updating their process, their features, and today the co-host is as good as a host. So, for example, if you want a person who's only responsible for the breakout rooms, and remember, breakout rooms we use only for table topics and evaluation. So let's say you want somebody responsible only for ensuring that those breakout rooms are created and the contestants are moved to the breakout room, then you can assign a separate person only for that, so that the moderator or the host can focus on the overall contest. But initially that was not possible. So that time the moderator role used to be really tough, because you had to worry about the main contest, you had to worry about the breakout rooms. But today you can sort of divide the activities, especially as you go up the ladder from area to division. As the contest becomes more complex, you can have multiple people sharing the responsibility. So what does the moderator do, or the host do? Obviously, the main responsibilities are to create the breakout room, assign the contestants to the breakout room, contest chairs, sergeant at arms to correct rooms, and so forth. So this is a full-time job, you know. I remember when I first did my district contest, I was sitting in this one chair from morning till evening, 8 or 9 hours without moving, because just to observe what's happening while the rest of the people are doing their job. But as a moderator, you have to keep your eyes on each and every aspect that's happening and make sure people are doing what they're supposed to do. Then, of course, you can have now multiple co-hosts. You can have n number of co-hosts. There's no limit, but for a contest, you might need at least 3, 1 to monitor the waiting room, 1 to make sure the participants are muted, unmuted at the right time. And then, of course, now we can have a separate co-host to handle only the breakout rooms. We need a timer, and this is something that I can demonstrate to you here itself. So before, when we used to do this contest, the timer used to be a problem. How do you place the timer so that the contestants can see the timer at all times and they don't run out of or go beyond the time? So if I was to show you now, demonstrate to you how the timer role works, generally you might, I don't know what you all do in your contest. Do you all instruct the contestants to pin the timer? What do you all do? So when I'm a contestant and I'm speaking and I want to make sure that I always see the timer, what are the instructions you all give to your contestants? Can we have some answers in the chat? Contestant must pin the timer. Yes. Well, now there is a new feature if you all want to use that. And I always brief the contestants because some of the contestants, they really want to see themselves on the screen, but they are limited by the technology. So they are forced to pin the timer and then they don't see themselves properly. So if they want to see themselves properly, which is actually at the end of the day, they are the stars of the show, right? Not the timer. So they shouldn't be staring at the timer all the time and getting scared. So what we can do is we can use this new feature called arrange videos. So let's say in this case, Crystal, let's say, is the timer for today, right? So she would be having some timing device, some virtual background, maybe whatever timing method that they want to use. So what we can do is we can say that yeah. So what I can do is I can say there is an option when you are when you're a host and you want to see the gallery view. Let me try to show you how it looks. So you can see the gallery view now, that what I'm seeing, right? So if I click on the view button, there is something called gallery view and speaker view. So if I go to the gallery view, I can rearrange the timers. For example, Sharon is the timer. So I can move her to the left-hand side here, right? And then I can say, follow host video order. So what happens is when I force this, Sharon will be always on the top left corner of the screen, right? And let's say Larry is the second backup timer. So I can move him to the second place. And now when you are in the speaker view, all the audience will see Sharon as the first video and Larry as the second video. Now my briefing to my contestants will be, hey, look, you have an option now. If you want to see yourself all the time, that's great. Your timer will be right there on the corner, right? And especially if you're using a computer or a laptop, this will be fine. If you are using a phone to deliver a speech, then possibly you have to use pin timer because there's no other way for you. But we would recommend that you use a laptop or a computer to deliver your speech because then you'll get this flexibility of having the timers locked by the moderator to the screen. And so that would be the good guideline. And that's what we do. At least whenever I conduct my contest, when I'm briefing the contestants, I tell them, you have this flexibility. The timer will be always on your left-hand side. The backup timer will be the next one. So in case the main timer disconnects for some reason, then yeah, just look at Larry. He will start showing you the timing signals. Okay. So that is how we do you can look at it from improving your timing using that method. I hope that is, yeah, so Anne does something, what I have just shown, that's great. Then, of course, the master of ceremony will conduct the online contest. So here, normally what I do is I make sure that there's a master of ceremony and a backup and they both have the same script. In case something goes wrong, then the backup master of ceremony should come online. Generally, I tend to make them the co-host during their segment, and then remove the co-host rights when their role is over. The same goes for contest chairs. Once the contest, let's say the evaluation contest starts, the contest chair will be made the co-host. When the contest is over, then the co-host rights will be revoked. Again, ensure that there is a backup for the contest chair.
I can get it. Go ahead.
Okay, so finally, we have this chief judge, telecounters, judges, tie-break judge, test speaker. So for them, basically, that's the role of the chief judge. We don't worry much about it, but we should know as a moderator who is the test speaker, who's the backup test speaker, so that we can unmute them at the right time. And for contestants, we had created a separate guidelines. I can share that with you also if you all want to share with your contestants. What are the best practices for delivering your content in an online environment? Light, camera, and audio, all of those things. In fact, my wife is preparing herself right now to give a test speech in one of the contests in Bahrain. So I had set up for her nice setup to deliver her test speech. Now, as far as coordination is concerned, our recommendation, of course, is that, for example, there should be separate groups. I don't know whether you all use WhatsApp or Messenger there, but here WhatsApp is heavily used. So for groups, such as, let's say, the role player groups or the judges groups, each one creates their own WhatsApp group so that communication happens outside of Zoom. I don't believe that using chat for any communication related to contests is a good idea, because sometimes when you're putting the chat messages by mistake, instead of sending it to that particular person, you might end up sending to the entire group, and that could be not such a good idea. And of course, as I said, prepare your contestants, prepare your role players by doing mocks before the actual contest. And that's how you do the team coordination. Now let's talk about the breakout rooms, and I will explain to you and show you how we can create breakout rooms and how we can use them in the contest correctly. If you all have not done, some of you all are not very comfortable with it, so I will do it like hands-on. But let's understand the structure of it. So the best way I found is to conducting contest is to have, as we mentioned, a waiting area, the waiting room, as we explained, that everyone should wait in the waiting room. And from there, you move to the contest hall. And from here, the Zoom moderator can send out the participants or the role players to different rooms. So for a contest, normally I will create something called an isolation room. This is for the contestants during the table topics or evaluation session. The ballot counting room is for the chief judge and the telecounters. You can have briefing rooms for judges and contestants before the contest. And this is in a physical meeting, we used to do that, right? We used to have briefing rooms before the contest for the judges and the contestants. And initially we used to do that, but now what we have found is the better way is to do all of this before the day of the contest. So have 1 or 2 days before, the judges briefing is done, the contestant briefing is done, the speaking order all is set, so that when on the day of the contest, you just start the meeting and start the contest. There is no waiting. If some contestants are delayed or some judges are delayed, you don't have to worry about your contest getting delayed. So complete the contestant briefing separately, judges briefing separately, and then go ahead. So in reality, what we are talking about is a waiting room, a contest hall, isolation room, ballot counting room. A protest room can be kept or can be created on the fly, if the chief judge tells you, moderator, I have a problem, I need to go to a separate room with my judges, or maybe with the timer, or bring in the contestant there to discuss something, so you can have that protest room to take care of such eventualities. So let's see how we can do that. I will share my screen once again. So make sure, of course, that your breakout rooms are enabled. So this you will find out if the breakout rooms were not enabled in the settings on the day of the contest, and you started the meeting and you cannot find the breakout rooms, you will be in big trouble. So ensure that the breakout rooms are working. Can you all see the screen, Crystal, especially that there is a pop-up now coming saying create one breakout room?
Yes.
All right. Because sometimes Zoom doesn't show its own windows, but now it shows. So what I do is I always create these breakout rooms on the day of the contest itself, though you can create them previously, but creating breakout rooms is a 1-minute job for me. And especially once you become familiar with it. So for contest environment, it's always a good idea to use breakout rooms by creating them manually. Okay, because that way you can assign people manually. You have better control, and then click on the create button. So here, when in a contest environment, the first thing I will do is it starts by having one breakout room. It's called room 1. If I want to change the name, I can just click on the rename button and call it, let's say, isolation room, or any other name that you prefer. This is where the contestants will be taken for table topics, for evaluation. So that's the room for the contestants. Let's create one more room for the ballot counting. So room 2, click on rename. So let's call it a ballot counting room, and add room. And the third room, let's call it protest room, in case it is required. So we have now 3 rooms and we are set for a contest. Before we open these rooms, there is these options, and you have to be very careful about these options, because what options you choose will define how the breakout room will work. And sometimes if the breakout room was set up incorrectly, you may suddenly find that while the contest is going on, let's say the evaluation contest is going on and the breakout room starts closing. It has happened, in the past. So what are the options we should choose to have a proper contest? First of all, allow the participants to choose room? No, you should not enable it. So this should be off, because you will assign the participants to the room. Allow participants to return to the main session at any time? Disable it, because you don't want participants by mistake to leave the breakout room and enter the main hall while the speech is going on. This has also happened. By disabling this, what happens is they are locked. They can't get out of that room. The only option available for the contestants is they can leave the entire contest. And that way, if they try to re-enter, you'll find them in the waiting room. So this is a way to control, to ensure that no mistakes happen. So disable this option, allow participants to return to the main session. Automatically move all assigned participants into the breakout room? Yes, enable it, so that when you open the room, when the contest just says, moderator or host or whatever you call it, sergeant at arms, can you please move the contestants to the breakout room? You hit the button, all the contestants will find themselves immediately inside the breakout room. You don't have to do anything, or they don't have to do anything. So there is less stress for the contestants, And this is the thing I am talking about. Make sure by all means that this is off. Imagine what would have happened if I had not clicked this, if this was on and this was 15 minutes by default, this is how it is. and I had opened the breakout rooms. Let's say the contest started and the table topic is going on. And after 15 minutes, you'll suddenly find all the contestants in your main session because the breakout room has closed automatically. So no, make sure that the breakout room does not close automatically after any period. It is off. And the countdown is fine. You can say countdown when you close the breakout room. You can set to 30 seconds, or 60 seconds, whatever it is. So this is how the breakout room should be configured. Don't allow the participants to choose the room. Don't allow them to return to the main session at any time. Automatically move them to the breakout room. Make sure it doesn't close automatically. You will close the breakout room and countdown. Yeah, you can set up a countdown for 30 seconds or 60 seconds.
We have a question in the chat about if you have the feature turned off that the contestant or the people can go back into the main room themselves. If you have that turned off, how do they get out of the break? How do they get from the breakout room to the main room when it's their turn?
Yeah, I will explain that now. So what I will do is I will take my friend because he's quite experienced in this. So let's say now that this is a contest going on and we have only one contestant, Dinesh. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, assign him to the breakout room. He's contestant number 1, let's say. And generally, of course, when in your contest, what we advise contestant to do is to name themselves accordingly. So Dinesh, for example, if you could name yourself as your international speaker number 1, so I can show them how it works. And I'm sure they do the same thing in their district also. Dinesh, are you there?
I'm doing.
Yeah, okay. So as you can see, one of the cool things about when you're trying to assign as a moderator all your contestants to, let's say, the isolation room, the evaluation contest is about to start. I click on the assign button. Let's say internationals. Yeah, Dinesh, make it eval 1, not international, because international, we will not be sending them to isolation room, right? Yeah.
It's okay, DTM Cajetan?
Yes. So when you have all these hundreds of people in your contest, it can be very difficult to find out who are the contestants, right? So our recommendation has always been name yourself before the beginning of the contest by saying eval or int or tt. So for example, evaluation contest is about to start. So I can just type, for example, eval, and it will filter all the people who start with eval. So it's very easy for me to tick, 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 tick. In 1 second, I have found all the contestants. I can also find out if any contestant is missing because their names 01, 02, 03. I will find, okay, all the contestants are there. Okay. And he's assigned. So we can see now that there is one person assigned to the isolation room, only one contestant. And the contest has started and the contest chair gives me the instructions. Can you move all the contestants to the breakout room? All I have to do is click on open all rooms. When I do that, Dinesh will find himself straight into the isolation room. So if I scroll down now, I can see he's moving. It's not a join and it will turn green once he moves there. It takes a few seconds for the movement from main session to the breakout room. And so the moment I see green, it means he's now in the breakout room. So if there were 8 contestants and I see 8 green, then I give instructions to the contest chair saying, contest chair, all the contestants are now in the breakout room. And of course, I will be also sending 1 or 2 sergeant at arms to keep an eye on them. And that's a different story about sergeant at arms and what chief judge wants from them, whether their video should be on all the time. So that's a different discussion. I'm not so concerned about it, but that will be handled by the chief judge and the sergeant at arms. But for me, I have moved them. And so now all the contestants, let's say in this case, I have sent only 1, but let's say there were 8 or 9 or with the sergeant at arms. And now the contest chair says, can you bring the first contestant into the main session? The way I like to do it is, first of all, I broadcast a message to the breakout room. You will also see it. So I say, contestant number 1, Dinesh, will now enter the main session. So I send the broadcast message so that the contestants who are there and the sergeant at arms who are there are aware that the moderator is now moving the contestant number 1 into the main session. So if I click on this move to, I can see I can move him to the main session. Okay, so the participant, the contestant doesn't have to do anything. When it is his time, I click main session, and now he will be given a prompt on his screen saying the moderator or the host is calling you into the main session. He just has to accept, and you will find now Dinesh with us. Then I can say contest chair, contestant number 1 is now in the main session. You may proceed. Okay, so that's the way I would advise you all to do, because it's less headache for the contestant. There is no chance of any mistakes happening. So you decide as a moderator or as a host or a co-host to move people into that room, when to move them and when to bring them back, send the right messages at the right time. And once everything is done, you can close all the rooms. Right? Similarly, once the contest is over and the chief judge is ready to go to the contest into the ballot counting, I can just click assign. I would generally know the chief judge as CJ or something like that. And the ballot counters, they normally name themselves telecounters, but they are usually 2 or 3. So it's very easy to know who they are. Assign them and move them to the ballot counting room. And they will be there on their own doing their ballot counting. Okay, so that is how the breakout room works. Any questions on breakout rooms? So Heather, I hope I have answered your question about how contestants return to the main room. The moderator takes care of it.
Yeah, you have. Thank you very much.
Larry asks, how do you open only one room and not all of them? Well, actually, there is no way to open only one room at a time. When you open the rooms, all rooms are open at one time. So you have to only make sure that the right people are assigned to the right room. When you click on that button, open all rooms. So if you click on the breakout rooms option here, you can see there is no option to say open only this room. I have to open all rooms. So whoever is assigned to those rooms, they will be moved automatically. So ideally, the other thing I would like to highlight it to you is that once the ballot counting is done or once the evaluation contest is done, what I do is I remove them from this assignment so that they won't move into that room by mistake, right? Similarly, when the ballot counting is done, just go and ensure that nobody's assigned. So you handle one room at a time, even though there is no option to open one room at a time, but you make sure that people are assigned to one room at a time. I hope that clears your question. Yeah. Sharon, thank you. That looks easy. I hope you take up your Zoom moderator role for the next contest, if you haven't already done so. Dinesh has a question. Please go ahead.
DTM Cajetan, I don't have any question, just suggestion. If you can remove the panel right side on your screen as a participant list or chat, so we will be having the view and the widen for your screen.
Yeah,
Thank
I've
you.
done that now. So
Yeah.
I had seen the note. Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's go and check if there is anything else in our document. So I hope this is very clear to you all now, how the breakout rooms work. And remember, breakout rooms are used only for evaluation and table topics. You don't have to use them for humorous and international. There the participants can be, contestants can be in the main room. Again, you can set up your waiting room. You can customize the waiting room. How many of you all know how to customize your waiting room? This is done in the Zoom settings. So if you are in the Zoom settings, make sure you customize your waiting room here. So have a waiting room, and then we have this customized waiting room where we can put your branding logo. You can give some text message and then a title on top. So this could be welcome to District 45 speech contest, and then add some text here, add your logo, and you are done. So this is how, when a participant enters the breakout room, enters the waiting room, that's what they will see. So customizing of the waiting room. So as I mentioned to you, you should have your host and a lot of co-hosts to support you, and you can decide which host and which co-host will handle which responsibility. So you have to have sergeant at arms to monitor the room. You have to have sergeant at arms to go to with the contestants in the breakout room, and maybe you need another contestant, another sergeant at arms to handle the overall logistics, while the moderator just keeps an eye on the entire thing. The room assignment, I've already explained to you how it works. And now it's very important that we do the contest briefing and before, with the contest chair, with the contestants, determine the speaking orders. All of these things should be, as far as possible, done earlier to the actual contest. Speaking order, there are n number of ways you can choose the speaking order. I now prefer to use random.org whenever we want to set up. Normally the contest chair will take care of this. So just go to the random and then choose list. List randomizer. And this is where you can enter the names of the contestants and use the randomize to give them their speaking order. This is one way, but again, it's entirely up to you all how you choose your speaking order. Ideally, do it before the contest so that you all are already all set. Timing devices, that's another topic. How you want to use timing, you want to use your virtual background, or for example, I had created a separate dedicated contest timer, and Dinesh here is an expert in that application that we created that allows you to keep track of precise timing of the contestant, their names, and that can be directly shared with the judges. But I think that's another story. Timers normally, if they are not that tech savvy, might prefer virtual background as the timing device. Again, I don't know what is that you all use, but it's as long as the speaker is able to see the timing device, that is all that matters. The judge's briefing, of course, is a different story. It is handled by the chief judge, but there are some guidelines here for the chief judges. I will leave that to, I will share the material with you all in terms of some of the guidelines that we can use, best practices. But in terms of what you can do as a Zoom moderator, I think I have basically covered in terms of setting up the breakout rooms, handling the timing and the contestants and the security. If you have any questions in the next 5 minutes, I'm more than happy to address them.
There is a question in the chat about sorting the people. And it's asking, must all arranging of personnel be manual? Is there a standardized naming convention and an auto sort that can be done?
So here I'm assuming you're referring, Phyllis, to the contestants' names, how to sort them. Is that what you're saying? You can unmute yourself and ask the question, no problem. Yeah, Dirk Schneider said a breakout room must be available for the ballot count. It will also be used to adjudicate protests. It's right. It's up to you. You can have 2 separate rooms if you want, or you can use the same room for multi-purpose. Could the contest hall be created as a breakout room, allowing the main meeting room to function as a reception area? Some districts have done this. There are certain advantages and disadvantages to this. I prefer the main hall session to be the contest, actual contest hall. The reason is because in a breakout room, so many restrictions start applying. You know, you can only do certain things in a breakout room. And so you will find a lot of restrictions that you'll have to get around. If you do it in the main hall, then whatever I have done or explained works beautifully. So if you start doing your actual contest in a breakout room, then you'll have to figure out the challenges that you need to overcome there. I hope that sort of answers your question. It's not wrong, but there will be different challenges that you may face because you can't do everything that you can do in the main session.
Yes, thank you.
So regarding the naming convention, as I mentioned to you, it is normally done by the contestant, but if they are having difficulty naming themselves, obviously as a host, you can do it yourself, right? I mean, so if I was to say that so for example, if I look at the participants and then I say, oh, Anne is not renaming herself. She's actually taking part in international speech and she's contestant number 3. So I could rename her directly here. I could just say using the and I will rename her so that it's easy for me to manage the contestants. So as the contestants come, if they have forgotten, because, you know, at the end of the day, contestants are not worried about technical aspects. They are focused on their speech. So you can always help them. You can always say, yeah, no problem. I will handle it. I know who are the contestants. As they enter, I will simply click rename. And let's say Albert is international contestant number 1, right? So I have them here. So if I was to assign now to the isolation room, for some reason, the international speakers, immediately I'll get those 2 speakers on the screen. Tick, 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 and I'm done.
Cajetan, I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
Usually I saw in the meeting, any new participant join, it gives us some type of the alarm or beep sound. It
Yeah.
was that what you told the mute the participant on joining or
So
something
there are
else?
so there are settings here in the participant. If you click on participants, right, and here if you click on this 3 dots at the bottom, so here there is invite, there is mute all, and there is this 3 dots. So there is this option called play sound when someone joins or leaves. In a contest, make sure it is off. It can be very distracting. And even in a meeting, sometimes ting, ting, people coming and leaving. So no, just disable it. But these are kind of security settings that we should be aware of as Zoom moderators. For example, after all the debacle that happened in Zoom, when people started using Zoom and everyone was saying, oh, it's a security nightmare, they came up with this shield here called security, which allows you quickly to handle any issues that happen, right? So for example, I want to disable chat. Just click on security, disable chat. Click on security, allow people to unmute themselves. I want to stop people from unmuting themselves. Just click on this. Before it was possible, it is not that you couldn't do this, but they were available in all different places. You have to go to that option, you have to go this option. Now they combine all the security related issues into one place, which allows you to sort of manage it with a click of a button, right? So for example, if I say unmute themselves, I can do it from here. But also if you click here, I can click these 3 buttons and also do the same thing here, right? Allow participants to unmute themselves. I can disable it from here. So there were some things we could do from here. There were some things we had to do from here. Now with the security, all of them have been brought into one place. So as a moderator, it becomes easy for us to manage it. Okay, I hope that clears some of the questions. Thank you, Sharon. I will share the document to everyone who had registered, even if they have not attended. I'll send an email immediately after this meeting, attaching both the document as well as the contestant guidelines. So
Wonderful.
yes. Yeah, so most of you all have, I can see, knew some things. You have learned a few tips here and there, and at least you have made sure that you now have the best practices that you can apply for your next Zoom contest. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Cajetan. It was really helpful to have you come and visit District 45 and give us some great tips. I definitely learned a lot. I'm going to do a little newsletter article for our district newsletter to share. And when you send those documents, I'll make sure that it is shared with all of our District 45 members, because we're just starting to get geared up for our contests. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to come and share your knowledge with us. And you are definitely welcome to visit District 45 at any point. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming.
Great job. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was really good.
Great
I
tips.
learned
Thank
a
you so much.
lot.
Yeah, it's great. Great